The same year as my parents' 50th wedding anniversary, some friends of theirs had a 50th wedding anniversary too. And their son gave them several bottles of wine with their names and the anniversary date on the label. And my dad said, well, that's a nice idea. And the other dad responded, well, they really appreciated the special label wine to mark their anniversary, but there was one problem. And the problem was that the wine inside was the worst wine they had ever tasted. He then told my dad he wanted to send me one of those bottles. And Dad said, well, Wallace always appreciates a gift, but what kind of gift is horrible tasting wine? Are you mad at Wallace about something? He said, no, nothing like that. I was just hoping because he's a minister that Wallace could change that wine, bad wine, to water. So at least it would be good for something. At least it would be drinkable. Obviously, my parents' friends had heard about Jesus' first sign, when he changed water into wine at the wedding feast at Cana. We all probably know our own jokes about it, and I've had people ask me to change water to wine at several events, but let's see what happens in John 2, verse 1. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. If you take the 4 days from last Sunday, when 6 disciples began to follow Jesus, and add the third day, you get 7. What does 7 mean in the Bible? It takes us back to creation and the Sabbath rest for all people, animals, the rich, the poor, slaves, and free. And John 1 introduced Jesus with the creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And maybe this is the end of the creation of Jesus' ministry, the end of creating the prelude, the background for Jesus, the point when his ministry begins. But the third day is also a phrase that John will use for the Roman crucifixion of Jesus and God's resurrection. So the third day points forward to the end of the gospel. Sometimes 3 is just 3, but with John, there's mostly deeper meaning. And I invite you to consider that here. These signs in the early chapters of John point to the Messiah Jesus, who ushers in the new messianic age, which is also used by John as the third day. So there was a wedding at Cana of Galilee. Cana's a little town near Nazareth, and Jesus was from Nazareth, so people from neighboring towns were invited to this big celebration. What does a wedding mean to you? Some say it's the happiest day of their life, other than maybe the birth of their children. It's a celebration. It's a festive occasion. It's something you hope for and you plan for before inviting others to celebrate with you. A wedding can't be done alone. You need witnesses to be married. It's a communal event, a community event. And like being the church, you can't follow Jesus alone. You can only follow in community, as disciples together on a path to abundant living. And a wedding creates a new reality. Something new comes out of the marriage and the celebration that wasn't there before. And the community supports this new reality. At the start of most of my weddings, I would ask the family and friends and church members to take this vow when the couple takes their vow. We, your friends and family, promise to celebrate your joys, support you through challenges, and remind you of the love you share today whenever you need us. And when the couple would turn back to me, I'd whisper to them, "You're not alone in this." Something new is created in Jesus coming to this world, and we're not alone in following him. and the mother of Jesus was there. The mother of Jesus is never mentioned by name in John's gospel. And this is her first appearance in the gospel. There's no birth story in John's gospel. This is our initial encounter with her and Jesus. And Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. Now, the disciples just began following in the previous verses, and they're invited to the wedding with Jesus, probably because they live in that rural area as well, and maybe all the towns in the surrounding area would be invited to this huge celebration. Or I always wonder if maybe Jesus turned his +1 into +6 at this point. Jesus is part of our daily lives. Jesus came to share life with us. He entered our daily lives. He weeps with us at our funerals. He rejoices with us at our weddings. He was not a killjoy who frowned on or ruined celebrations with his presence. He came to love, to teach, to serve. He came to celebrate life. And when the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Now, a marriage feast in Jesus' day lasted days, up to a week. It was a celebration for all the neighborhood. But here at some point, the wine gets emptied by the guests. Maybe Jesus wasn't the only one who brought +6. Maybe it lasted a few extra days. Maybe they drank more than the caterer planned. But this would be a huge embarrassment to the groom, the host of the wedding party, to run out of wine. So the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Am I the only one who has a mother like that? Who had a very quiet and firm way of expressing her wishes? Or is this the language of all mothers everywhere? Because growing up, I'd hear things like, "The trash is full," "Your bed isn't made," "The fire needs wood," "The table's not set." All those things implied that I was supposed to do something about it. They have no wine doesn't seem to be an excuse to leave or a complaint about the groom's planning. It seems to be a request of Jesus to do something about it. And Jesus seems to interpret it that way too. Because Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to me and to you? My hour has not yet come." Now, some interpreters say Jesus is being discourteous when he uses the word woman for his mother. Like, what son, even what 30-year-old adult son, calls his mother woman? But I'm not going to go there. There are other places Jesus calls her woman, and it's courteous enough then. But Jesus is dismissive about getting involved. Why meddle around in someone else's business? What problem is it to us? Jesus does not want to do something for two reasons. First, he asks, what is that to me or you that they've run out of wine? If they've run out of wine, it's not my problem, it's theirs. Not my monkeys, not my circus, as some would say today. But then Jesus says, my hour has not yet come. Sounds like Jesus is on God's timeline, and he's not going to adjust that timeline for something his mother wants. But again, the wording is important to John, because John refers to the crucifixion as the hour for Jesus' glory to be revealed. It's not yet time for that. The hour also refers to the new messianic age that begins in Jesus coming to the world. And it's not the time for that new age to begin. My hour has not yet come. And then, like my mother might do, she doesn't argue with Jesus. She talks to somebody else. She talks to the servants. His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you. Do whatever he tells you." We have no idea what she knows or doesn't know about Jesus at this point in John, what Jesus can or might do. But she doesn't argue with Jesus. She trusts Jesus. Do whatever he tells you. He might tell you to apologize for this social disaster. He might send them out to buy more wine. He might tell them to send the guests home. He might do nothing. Whatever he tells you to do, do it. Now, standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Now, Jewish purification was simply the ritual of washing hands before each meal. And that was a lot of water for a lot of hands. This was not water used for ritual bathing. It was hand washing. You know, using the prescribed 1 cup of purifying water per person would have been enough water in those jars for 2,000 guests in a town of several hundred. It's a lot of water. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. Some ask, where would the servants get all that water? Well, the text doesn't say they were empty to start. It says, fill them to the brim. And I interpret that as filling them the rest of the way, with enough water in each jar to get to the top. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the person in charge of the banquet." So they took it. Notice they are doing whatever Jesus tells them to do, like his mother said. They fill the jars with water. They draw some out. They take it to the steward of the banquet, what we call the caterer today. And when the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Notice how subtle this sign is. We don't see the water changing into wine. Somewhere along the way it did. No one saw it happen through clay jars. They're not glass. And the chief steward tastes the wine, not knowing where it came from. But the servants know. They're the only ones, besides Jesus and his disciples and his mother, who know what happened. Just the servants. Everyone else doesn't have a clue. If this had been at Downton Abbey, it would have only been the downstairs kitchen staff who would have known. Isn't that the way with gifts from God? Some people enjoy them, but only servants of God know where the gifts come from. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that person called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you kept the good wine until now." Do we do that today? Serve the good stuff first so nobody notices the change for the worse? Maybe not just wine. What about consumer goods we sell? Bring out the best first and then gradually lower the quality to increase profits. Make it go bad more quickly over time. Oh, well, what's that to me or you? Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory. And his disciples believed in him. This sign points to the glory of Jesus and helps his disciples who had just begun following him to believe in him. These signs in John will help all of us understand who Jesus is and what Jesus envisions so that we can believe in him too. And our lectionary reading ends there, but verse 12 adds this to the story. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother, his brothers, his disciples, and they remained there a few days. After telling the story, I like to ask, so what? What does it mean for us today? Jesus turns 100 gallons of water into wine because his mother wants him to. Those who are better at math than I am calculate the wine would be about 1,000 bottles of wine. That's a lot of wine for Cana, a rural town of less than 1,000 people. That's quite a miracle. But a wise man once said, the only purpose of a miracle is to remind us that you have no idea how things work. Barbara Brown Taylor says, that's the difference between faith and certainty. As soon as you're certain of something, something will happen to blow that certainty out of the water. Faith means not being certain, but trusting anyway. I don't know how miracles work, but I put my trust and faith in God who works through this created order, bringing about miracles every day. Every time you get on an airplane, you aren't certain it can stay in the air the whole way, but you have faith. You have trust that it will. And like a miracle, you have no idea how everything works, but you put your trust and faith into the process enough to get on board. In terms of today's sign, when Jesus' mother reaches the end of what she can do, she tells the servants to do whatever Jesus tells them to do. She doesn't know what will happen next, and she's okay with that. Not only because she knows her son, but because she knows where certainty ends and faith begins. Her belief is not based on anything she's seen Jesus do, because he hadn't done anything yet in the Gospel of John. But without a reason, she believes he can make a difference if he wants. She tells the servants, do whatever he tells you to do, and leaves it alone. If he tells them to do nothing, he tells them to do nothing. If he tells them to do something, he tells them to do anything he wants. This is not certainty, this is faith. She trusts her son has heard her, and she trusts him to do the right thing. And she trusts that whatever he does or does not do will be the right thing. Wine or no wine, either way. In every way that counts, Jesus' decision to make the wine is the oddest part of this odd story. His mother asked him to do something he clearly does not want to do. The timing isn't right. It's not his business. And he does it anyway. He honors his mother. He saves the bridegroom from embarrassment. He launches his ministry before he thought he was ready. No wonder so many interpreters have spilled so much ink trying to make sense of this story. The reason they fail, I hope, is because the purpose of a miracle is to remind us that we don't really know how things work. All we know is that his mother and the kitchen staff knew. One, that once you ask Jesus for something, the matter is out of your hands. And two, when he asks you to do something, you do it. At least if you want a taste of good wine. That echoes my prayers to God. I say to God what I need, what I hope for, what I wish for the world, and I leave it. And I trust God from there. And then, whatever God does is fine with me. But whatever God asks of me, I will do. Another lesson is the abundance of life Jesus offers is the best kind of life. And it's more than enough. It's abundant. We will see over and over again in the Gospel of John that Jesus came that we might have life and have it abundantly. And the word in Greek is zoe, which in some Bibles is translated as eternal life, and some people hear that as going to heaven after you die. But zoe means the life of the ages, the best life here and now. Jesus is talking about the life he gives us now, the best life of all time, the life like a community celebrating a wedding. And this also points back to John 1:16. After the Word became flesh and lived among us, comes the words, we have all received grace upon grace. God in Jesus overflows with gracefulness like the wine overflows in the sign. It's unexpected. It's beyond what is necessary. The wine isn't necessary for making a marriage celebration, but it adds a lot to it. And God's grace upon grace in Jesus may be more grace than is necessary, but it adds to our abundant life. Grace upon grace. No need that we have can exhaust the grace of God. God's grace is abundant, and it's more than enough. Nancy and I saw this painting in the Louvre in Paris. It's the miracle of turning water into wine. And you barely see Jesus and Mary in the middle of all this going on. Most of the people don't even know that a miracle has occurred. They just pour and drink the plentiful, improved wine without knowing the origin of it. It's easy to miss almost anything. We get busy. We're used to not paying attention. Could it be that the greatest sins are what we miss? What could be worse than missing the gifts of grace? Being bored in a fascinating world, feeling no joy in a church filled with love, being loved and feeling no gratitude, having a good job and dreading going to work, eating pie and not noticing how good it tastes, living an entire day without realizing that every day is a gift from God. It is only the servants and Jesus' followers who know what happened. And if they hadn't told anyone, none of these people would know. And we too, as followers of Jesus, need to tell others the good news that Jesus brings and the celebration of God's love and grace that Jesus brings to us. For if we don't tell them about who brought this wonderful, abundant life to us, if we don't tell them who brought all the gifts of God to us, they won't know it. They won't notice it. They won't know the good news right in their midst. The glory of God revealed to us in Jesus. Amen.